Hearts of the enemy. Their packs were enemies, their hearts were bound. Chapter 1. The war had been going on so long that Emma couldn't remember what peace smelled like. Ashridge pack's lands were soaked with the iron tang of blood and the bitter musk of fear. Patrols lined the borders, warriors with fur bristling, eyes sharp for the faintest sign of Stormfell wolves. Every howl in the distance was a reminder, the enemy was near, and the forest itself seemed to hold its breath between battles. Emma crouched at the tree line, bow taut in her hands. Her dark hair stuck to her forehead from the night's drizzle, the damp pine air sharp in her lungs. She was a scout now, no longer the girl who had once run barefoot through wildflowers, chasing fireflies. Her father, Brutus, Alpha of Ashridge, had made sure of that. Eyes forward, Brutus had told her earlier that day, his gravel voice leaving no space for softness. Stormfell spies will do anything to slip through. She'd nodded, silent as always. Her father's faith in her strength was its own kind of weight, heavy enough to crush her ribs. A rustle to the north. Emma turned, every nerve wired to snap. But instead of a raider's eyes gleaming in the shadows, she found herself staring at the last thing she expected. Roy. Even in the half-dark, she knew him. His wolf mark burned faint along his jawline, pale scars from a battle she hadn't been supposed to watch. Stormfell's heir. Brutus's enemy. Everything she was supposed to hate. But his eyes, gods, those eyes. Not pharaoh red like the stories claimed, but green, deep, forest green, the color of summer leaves she hadn't seen in years. Her pulse stumbled. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, Roy said, his voice low, steady, carrying that Stormfell lilt that made every word sound like defiance. But you are. Emma's grip on her bow tightened. This was madness. If her pack knew, if his pack knew, blood would spill faster than the rain sliding off the branches. And yet. She remembered the first time she had seen him not as an enemy but as a boy. 2 summers ago, at the river that split their territories. She had been bathing her bruised knee, cursing under her breath. He had appeared from the far bank, shirt torn, a cut bleeding down his arm. Both of them young, stupid, desperate for a place where war didn't define them. He'd smiled at her then, tentative, careful, and it had been enough to crack her world. Now, under the dripping canopy, he stepped closer. Not enough to be reckless. Just enough to let her see the truth in his face. You're not my enemy, he said softly. Emma's throat closed. She could hear her father's orders in her skull, kill on sight. Defend the border. Loyalty above all. But here stood Roy, Stormfell's future alpha, looking at her like she was more than Brutus's daughter, more than a soldier in her father's war. The bowstring went slack in her hands. You shouldn't say that, Emma whispered. If anyone hears you. No one will, he interrupted. No one but you. The rain thickened, hissing through the leaves. For a heartbeat, the forest was just water and silence and the impossible truth that her heart knew before her head, they were bound, whether or not their packs ever allowed it. A branch snapped behind her. Emma spun, heart leaping into her throat. But the shadows revealed only a fox darting through the undergrowth, vanishing into the night. When she turned back, Roy had already stepped back into the mist. Tomorrow, he whispered. Same place. Then he was gone, leaving only the echo of his voice and the fire in her chest she had no business feeling. Emma lowered her bow. She knew she should return to her patrol, to her father's trust, to Ashridge's endless war. Instead, she stood in the rain, pulse shaking her hands, knowing with bone-deep certainty that her heart had just betrayed her pack. Chapter 2. By the time Emma returned to camp, dawn had smeared gray light across the horizon. Ashridge warriors prowled between tents, their fur bristling from the storm, their voices sharp with suspicion. Every night felt like this now, like the whole pack expected an attack at any moment. She slipped past the guards, bow still strung, damp cloak clinging to her shoulders. If anyone asked, she'd say she'd been patrolling the ridge. If Brutus asked, she'd say nothing at all. Her father stood at the heart of camp, shoulders like a wall, eyes scanning the ranks of warriors who assembled for morning orders. His voice cut the air, heavy as iron. Stormfell pushes harder each week. They'll strike again soon. When they do, we don't bend. We don't show mercy. A chorus of growls rose in answer. Emma forced herself to stand tall, forced her face into the mask her father expected. But inside, guilt gnawed at her ribs like a trapped animal. Roy's voice echoed under her skin, "You're not my enemy." She swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the dirt. If Brutus looked too closely, he'd see. He always did. Emma. His gaze pinned her, sharp and unyielding. Report. Her mouth went dry. She should tell him she'd seen movement in the forest. She should tell him she'd faced a Stormfell wolf. She should lie and say she'd killed one. Instead, she forced the words out. The northern ridge is clear. Brutus studied her a moment too long, then nodded. Good. Stay sharp. Stormfell dogs prowl where they're not wanted. Her stomach clenched. She bowed her head, then slipped back into the crowd before anyone else could press her for details. Later, in the quiet of her tent, she stripped off her damp cloak and stared at the mark on her wrist, the pale crescent scar left from her first shift. It had always been a reminder of loyalty, pack before self. Now it looked like a brand, like a chain tightening around her skin. Ellie, her younger cousin, poked her head in, eyes wide. You okay? You look weird. Emma managed a smile. Just tired. Ellie flopped onto her cot. We're all tired. Sometimes I wonder what it'd be like if the war ended. If we could go to the river without guards. If we could talk to them, just once, without. Ellie. Emma's voice came sharper than she meant. Her cousin froze. Emma softened. Don't say that. Not where anyone can hear. Ellie sighed, rolling onto her side. Doesn't mean I don't think it. Neither did Emma. But saying it was dangerous. Thinking it was dangerous. Meeting Roy again, suicidal. And yet, when the night fell once more, Emma found her feet carrying her back to the river. Roy was already there, leaning against a tree with his arms crossed. His hair clung damp to his forehead, his green eyes catching the moonlight. You came, he said. She should have turned around. She should have walked away. Instead, Emma stepped closer. So did you. The distance between them felt charged, alive. The river whispered at their feet, a thin line dividing packs that had bled each other for generations. For a moment, Emma let herself believe it wasn't war that bound them here, but something older, something stronger. Roy's voice softened. Maybe our fathers started this war. But we don't have to finish it. Her chest tightened. If they knew we were here, they'd kill us both. Then let's not give them the chance. His hand lifted, not touching, just hovering close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Meet me again. Tomorrow. And the day after. Until, he trailed off, a small, broken smile on his lips. Until it's not impossible anymore. Emma's throat burned with words she couldn't speak. She should have told him no. She should have run. Instead, she whispered, tomorrow. And for the first time in years, hope curled in her chest like a spark, reckless and bright. Chapter 3. The nights became their sanctuary. Emma learned the sound of Roy's footsteps in the dark before he even appeared. She learned the tilt of his smile, the way his voice dropped when he teased her, the steadiness in his eyes when he wasn't trying to hide behind bravado. They didn't meet long, just minutes stolen between patrols, but those minutes stitched together something that felt like a second life. At first, they just talked. About the river as children, about the constellations that threaded the sky above packs who claimed to own the same moon. Roy told her about his sister, Celia, fierce and stubborn, the one he feared would throw herself into battles she couldn't win. Emma told him about Ellie, about how she dreamed of a world where pups could chase fireflies without blood on the wind. And slowly, talking became brushing fingers when they passed a stone across the river. Fingers brushing became Roy stepping closer, testing the air between them, as if daring her to pull away. She never did. One night, the air was thick with the scent of rain, thunder grumbling in the distance. Emma stood at the river's edge, heart hammering, as Roy waded through the shallows to her side. His shirt clung to his chest, his jaw shadowed in moonlight. "This is madness," Emma whispered, but her voice trembled more with want than fear. "Maybe," Roy said, closer now. "But it's ours." When his hand slid against her cheek, warm and calloused, Emma leaned into it as if she'd been waiting her whole life. His kiss was hesitant at first, careful, as if he expected her to push him away. But when she didn't, when she answered with a desperation she hadn't known was in her, his restraint cracked. The storm broke above them, rain pouring down, washing the war from their skin if only for a moment. They broke apart only when the forest snapped with the sound of a branch. Emma froze, eyes darting to the tree-line. For a breath, she feared Brutus's glare would be waiting, or worse, Axon's. But the shadows revealed nothing, only silence heavy with suspicion. Roy's jaw tightened. "We're not alone anymore." That night, Emma returned to camp dripping and shaken. Brutus stood outside her tent, eyes sharp. "You're late." "I lost track of the patrol," she lied. His nostrils flared, scenting the air, and for one terrifying moment Emma thought he would smell Roy's touch on her skin. But he only grunted. "Stormfell's been restless. Keep your eyes open." She nodded, heart pounding, slipping into her tent before her mask could crack. Across the border, Roy faced no less suspicion. Axon, Stormfell's alpha, towered like a thundercloud at the center of their campfire. His voice boomed, sharp and merciless. "Ashridge dogs sniff our borders. They'll break soon. When they do, we take their alpha's head." Roy sat still, hands clenched in his lap. He kept his eyes down, but his heart roared louder than Axon's orders. Because he knew that if war came again, Emma would be standing in the line of fire. And the thought of aiming his claws at her was unbearable. Chapter 4. Emma thought she had hidden the secret well, until Ellie cornered her. It was late, the fire in their camp burning low, warriors already curled into their bedrolls. Ellie sat cross-legged on Emma's cot, eyes wide and sharp. "You're different," she whispered. "You come back from patrol smelling like rain and lightning, not blood. You smile when you think nobody's watching. That's not war, Emma. That's someone." Emma froze, every muscle taut. "Ellie, don't." Her cousin leaned closer, her voice urgent but kind. "I won't tell. But you need to be careful." Father would, her throat closed around the thought. "You know what Brutus would do." Emma swallowed hard. She wanted to deny it, wanted to invent a story about secret routes or long walks. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she whispered, "It's not what you think." Ellie smiled sadly. "It's exactly what I think." Across the border, Roy's sister Celia was no less observant. "You vanish every night," she accused, arms crossed as she blocked the entrance to his tent. Her eyes, the same sharp green as his, glowed in the firelight. "Axon thinks you're scouting. But I know you, Roy. You hate sneaking." Roy forced a laugh. "Maybe I'm just restless." Celia's gaze narrowed. "Restless doesn't come back with eyes like yours." "Who is she?" He looked away. "Celia." Her breath caught. "No. Gods, Roy, tell me you're not meeting one of them." He said nothing. And that was answer enough. Celia's face went pale, but her jaw locked. "You're going to get yourself killed. And if Axon finds out," her voice broke into a growl. "Don't make me choose between you and the pack." That night, neither sibling nor cousin slept easy. And the forest seemed to sense it, because war broke loose before dawn. Stormfell warriors launched a raid on Ashridge's southern flank, fire arrows streaking the sky. Emma woke to shouts, to wolves shifting in the night, to the ground trembling beneath the clash of claws. She snatched her bow and ran, Ellie close on her heels. Brutus's roar carried through the chaos. To arms! Drive them back! Emma's heart stopped when she saw him, Roy, fighting through the smoke. His wolf form gleamed dark and powerful, fangs bared as he tore into an Ashridge soldier. For one heartbeat, their eyes locked across the battlefield, his green, hers amber, both wide with the same silent plea. Then Brutus's shadow loomed between them, blood already streaking his claws. He didn't see Roy's hesitation. He only saw an enemy ere within striking distance. Emma's breath caught. If her father struck true, Roy wouldn't live to see another dawn. Chapter 5. Brutus's roar split the battlefield as he lunged, claws arcing for Roy's throat. Emma didn't think. She moved. Her arrow loosed before she realized she'd drawn it, streaking across the chaos. It buried itself in the dirt inches from Brutus's paw, startling him mid-strike. Roy twisted away, teeth flashing, vanishing into the smoke before Brutus could recover. The Alpha turned, fury snapping his eyes like coals. Who fired? Emma's stomach dropped. Warriors nearby shifted uneasily, their gazes sliding away. No one spoke. The rain had smothered the scent trails, and the chaos gave her cover. But Brutus wasn't a fool, his gaze swept the crowd, lingering on her longer than anyone. Ellie shoved past, her bow still in hand. It was me, she said, boy steady. Emma's heart stopped. Brutus snarled, looming over her cousin. Why would you waste an arrow? Ellie's chin lifted, defiance blazing. It was a warning shot. To scatter them. It worked. The Alpha studied her, nostrils flaring, then turned away with a grunt. Do it again and I'll have your bow snapped. The moment passed, but Emma's lungs felt shredded. Ellie's eyes found hers across the firelight, fierce and unspoken. I saw. I covered you. Don't waste it. The battle raged until dawn, but Stormfell eventually retreated, leaving Ashridge licking its wounds. Emma slipped into the forest as soon as she could. Her legs carried her faster than sense, faster than fear, to the river where the war had not yet drowned their secret. Roy was already there, blood streaking his arm, his chest heaving. His wolf form shimmered away, leaving him human and raw. You almost died, Emma hissed, grabbing his wrist. Her fingers shook where they touched his skin. His eyes softened. And you saved me. She wanted to deny it, wanted to push him back into the role of enemy where he belonged. But the words dissolved against the truth pressing between them. Roy lifted a hand to her face, thumb brushing the dirt on her cheek. Emma, we can't keep this hidden. Not forever. Her heart lurched. If Brutus knew, if Axon knew, we'd both be dead before the next moonrise. Then let's find another way. His voice cracked, raw. There has to be one. Otherwise, what's the point of all this? Rain pattered around them, soft now, no longer a storm. Emma leaned into his touch, her chest a battlefield of its own, duty and longing tearing each other apart. You're asking me to betray my pack, she whispered. I'm asking you to believe we can be more than this war. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of fear, of yearning, of the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they weren't doomed to repeat their father's mistakes. Emma's reply came as barely more than a breath. Tomorrow. Meet me tomorrow. Roy's lips curved, fierce and aching all at once. Tomorrow. And for the first time, the word didn't sound like a gamble. It sounded like a promise. Chapter 6. Roy barely made it back to Stormfell before dawn. His clothes were torn, his chest still slick with blood, but it wasn't the battle wounds that had him raw, it was Emma's face when she'd whispered tomorrow. Celia was waiting outside his tent. Arms crossed. Eyes sharp. You stink of Ashridge. Roy stiffened. I fought Ashridge. Same as you. You didn't fight like us, she snapped, stepping closer. I saw you pull back. I saw you hesitate. Her voice dropped, bitter and frightened. I saw you look for someone. Roy's jaw clenched. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to shield her from the truth. But lying to Celia had never worked, not since they were cubs sneaking scraps from the hunter's kill. Her voice trembled now. Tell me it isn't Emma Brutus' daughter. The silence was answer enough. Celia swore, hands dragging through her hair. Moon help us, Roy. You're going to get us both killed. If Axon finds out. He won't. He will. She grabbed his wrist, nails biting. Do you understand what you're doing? You're handing your throat to the alpha who raised you. To the pack that bleeds for you. For her. Roy pulled free, his voice low but burning. And what if she's the only thing worth bleeding for? Celia's face crumpled, half fury, half sorrow. Then you're already dead. Across the river, Ashridge felt no safer. Brutus summoned Emma to the training yard. His gaze raked over her like claws, his tone deceptively calm. Strange, isn't it, he said. The enemy heir survives a battle with me, yet no one saw the killing blow land. Fortunate, for him. Emma's heart thudded. She forced her face blank. Fortune has nothing to do with Stormfell running. Brutus's lip curled. Don't play games with me, girl. You're my daughter. My blood. I know when you're hiding something. He circled her like a predator. If I find you've been keeping secrets, if I even smell treachery, I will end it myself. Do you understand? Emma held her ground, though her insides churned. Yes, Alpha. His eyes narrowed, and for one terrifying heartbeat she thought he'd strike. But then he barked a laugh and turned away. Good. Keep your bow sharp. Stormfell won't be lucky next time. Emma staggered to her tent after, breath shaking. Ellie caught her arm, whispering urgently. He suspects. I know. Emma pressed her fists against her eyes. But I can't stop. Ellie's hand squeezed hers. Then at least don't do it alone. Emma stared at her cousin, so young, so fierce, so loyal, and felt the noose tighten. Celia watching Roy. Brutus watching her. The river shrinking under their gaze. Tomorrow wasn't a promise anymore. Tomorrow was a test. Chapter 7. The river had never felt narrower. Emma slipped through the pines at dusk, hood pulled low, her pulse pounding so hard it blurred the forest's night song. Every step was a gamble, her father's eyes, Ellie's concern, the whole weight of Ashridge pressing against her lungs. Still, she came. Because not coming would have broken her worse than Brutus's wrath ever could. Roy was already waiting. He stood on the Stormfell side, half hidden in shadows, but the instant he saw her, his shoulders eased as though the war itself had let go for a heartbeat. You're here, he said softly. She almost laughed at the relief in his voice. Of course I am. He waded across the shallows, boots catching on slick stone. When he reached her, he didn't hesitate, his hands cupped her face, his mouth met hers, desperate and sure. Emma melted into him, the tension she carried dissolving like frost against fire. For a moment, there was no Ashridge, no Stormfell. Just the two of them, hearts thrumming in sync. But the forest was not empty. Celia crouched on the far bank, hidden behind cedar roots, green eyes blazing as she watched her brother press his lips to the enemy's daughter. Fury and heartbreak warred in her chest, but so did fear, if Axon discovered this. And on Emma's side, Ellie pressed herself into the underbrush, torn between horror and awe. She had suspected, yes, but seeing Emma with Roy, the tenderness, the rawness, turned suspicion into truth that could tear their world apart. Emma broke from the kiss first, breathless, eyes searching Roy's. We're not safe here anymore. Someone will see us. I don't care. His forehead rested against hers. I can't give this up, Emma. Not you. Her throat tightened. And if they make us choose? Our packs, our blood? Roy's grip on her hands hardened. Then I'll choose you. The words hit like a thunderclap. Emma wanted to believe them, to believe the bond between them could rewrite a war. But she saw Celia's green eyes in her mind, Brutus's threat echoing in her ears. Somewhere deeper in the forest, a howl rose, low, commanding, not Stormfell, not Ashridge, but something older. Both of them froze. Emma's blood chilled. "We're being hunted." Roy turned, teeth flashing, instincts bristling. Not by wolves. By eyes. And both of them, without knowing, thought of their sisters in the shadows. The bond between them was no longer a secret. It was a fuse. Chapter 8. Celia didn't wait for morning. Roy returned to camp under the veil of midnight, but his sister was there, waiting like a sentinel outside his tent. Her green eyes glinted like blades in the firelight. "You think you can hide it from me?" she hissed. "From Axon? I saw you, Roy. With her. Brutus's daughter." Roy's breath left him in a rush. He should have lied, should have denied. But Celia knew him too well. "It's not what you think." Her laugh was bitter. "It's exactly what I think. You've tied your heart to the enemy. Do you even understand what you've done?" Roy stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I understand that she's not my enemy. That this war is built on our father's pride, not truth. And if peace has a chance, even the smallest one, it's through us." Celia stared at him, something pained flickering beneath her fury. "Peace? You think Axon will listen? You think Brutus will let his daughter lie with Stormfell blood? They'll kill her, Roy. And when they're finished, they'll tear you apart, too. I won't let that happen." His voice broke, raw. "I love her, Celia." Her mouth fell open. For a moment she looked less like a warrior and more like the little girl who used to follow him through the pines. But then she shook her head, hard, as if to snap herself back. "Then you've already chosen your death." Emma wasn't spared either. When she crept into her tent, Ellie sat waiting, lantern lit, face pale. "I followed you," she whispered. "I saw everything." Emma's chest seized. "Ellie. Don't," her cousin cut in, voice sharp with fear. "Don't lie. I know what I saw. You kissed him. Roy. Stormfell's heir." Emma's lips parted, but no words came. Ellie surged forward, gripping her hands. "Do you know what Brutus would do if he finds out? He'd skin him alive. He'd lock you away until you forgot his name. This isn't just reckless, Emma, it's suicide." Emma's eyes burned. "And what if it's the only thing keeping me alive?" Ellie flinched at the rawness in her voice. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she pressed her forehead to her cousin's. "I love him. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But I do." Ellie's breath hitched, torn between horror and pity. "Then we have to protect it. Somehow. But if father even suspects?" "He already does," Emma whispered. Silence pressed between them, heavy as stone. For the first time, Emma saw the truth clear as moonlight. Their secret wasn't just theirs anymore. Celia knew. Ellie knew. And it was only a matter of time before Axon and Brutus tore the truth out with blood. Tomorrow wasn't a promise anymore. It was a reckoning. Chapter 9. The drums of war began to beat before the moon was half risen. In Stormfell's camp, Axon's voice thundered over the fires, his wolf form flickering at the edges of his rage. "Ashridge thinks us weak. They think last night's raid was failure. We'll show them failure when their alpha's blood soaks our claws." His pack howled, a brutal chorus, their eyes gleaming with the promise of violence. Roy stood among them, jaw locked, hands trembling. Celia lingered at his side, silent, her face pale beneath the firelight. She had said nothing since her warning, but her eyes said everything. "This is your last chance to walk away." But he couldn't walk away. Because every word out of Axon's mouth was a knife pointed at Emma. Across the river, Ashridge bristled with equal fervor. Brutus stalked through the war lines like a storm wrapped in flesh. Stormfell will come for us before dawn. Let them. We'll break their teeth and scatter their bones across the ridge. We'll show them Ashridge wolves don't bleed without vengeance. The warriors growled agreement. The pups were herded to the caves. Spears and claws glistened in the torchlight. Emma stood rigid beside her bow, the weight of her father's command pressing like chains around her chest. But her heart wasn't in the camp, it was across the river, green-eyed and waiting. Ellie hovered near, her face stricken. If this happens, she whispered, there won't be survivors. Not Stormfell. Not us. Emma's throat closed. She knew her cousin was right. If Axon and Brutus clashed again, there would be no holding back. Not this time. And caught between them would be Roy. Her heart clenched, every memory of him, his laugh, his touch, his kiss in the rain, pounding against her ribs. She couldn't let him die. She couldn't let her pack slaughter his, no matter how much they hated each other. There had to be another way. That night, Emma slipped through the sentries and sprinted for the river. The forest seemed to sense her desperation, branches clawing at her arms, roots tripping her feet. She stumbled onto the riverbank just as Roy emerged from the shadows, eyes wild, chest heaving. You heard too, he said. They're marching, Emma whispered. Both sides. They'll tear each other apart. Roy stepped closer, his hands gripping her shoulders, his voice breaking. Then we stop them. You and me. Together. Emma's breath hitched. If they find out. They'll find out anyway, when we're both lying in the dirt. His forehead pressed to hers, desperate, pleading. Emma, this bond, it has to mean something more than death. If we can prove it, if they see us, maybe they'll listen. Her fear warred with the fire in her chest. Brutus's warnings. Ellie's tears. Celia's rage. All of it weighed against one impossible truth, she loved him. And if she didn't fight for that love now, she'd lose him forever. Emma lifted her head, amber eyes burning. Then tomorrow, we stand together. No matter what comes. Roy's lips brushed hers, a vow sealed in the hush of the forest. Together. And in the distance, drums pounded, calling both packs to war. Chapter 10. Dawn rose blood-red over the ridge. Ashridge gathered on one side of the river, Stormfell on the other, two armies snarling across the water that divided them. Torches blazed, claws flexed, teeth bared. The air itself shivered with hatred older than Emma or Roy had ever been told. Brutus stood at the front, massive and grim, his wolf form already pushing against his skin. Across the river, Axon mirrored him, towering, eyes gleaming like molten stone. Their roars split the sky, a promise of carnage. And then both packs surged forward. The river churned with bodies. Wolves collided midstream, fur and blood spraying into the water. Emma loosed arrows from the bank, her heart screaming as every flash of green eyes made her falter. Roy tore through Ashridge warriors with claws that shook the ground, but every time he lunged, he searched the chaos for her. It couldn't go on. Not like this. Emma's bow slipped from her hands. She dove into the river, shoving through the melee, ignoring claws that slashed her arms. On the opposite bank, Roy saw her, his heart lurched, and he cut a path toward her with savage desperation. They met in the heart of the battlefield, where Ashridge and Stormfell clashed most violently. For one suspended breath, everything slowed. Wolves froze, stunned, as Emma hurled herself into Roy's arms. Her voice rose, carrying over the din. Stop. He is not my enemy. Roy lifted her hand high, his grip fierce, his green eyes blazing. She is my bond. The packs roared, not in triumph, but in shock. Brutus bared his teeth, fury twisting his face. Emma. His voice cracked like a whip. Get away from him. Axon thundered in kind. Roy. You shame Stormfell with this weakness. But the bond burned too bright to be denied. The scars on Emma's wrist and Roy's shoulder glowed with silver fire, the mark of something older than either alpha's command. Wolves on both sides staggered back, their snarls faltering as the glow spread like lightning between the lovers. Celia pushed forward, her voice raw. "Look at them. The bond is real." Ellie's cry rang out from Ashridge's side. "You can't tear this apart. It's stronger than your war." The light flared, forcing Brutus and Axon both to shield their eyes. And in that blinding moment, the battle stilled. Emma's voice shook the silence. "You've bled us for generations, for pride, for borders, for grudges older than our names. But the moon doesn't mark pride. It marks truth. And this is mine." She gripped Roy's hand tighter, fire sparking between their palms. "If you kill him, you kill me. If you tear us apart, you tear out the bond the moon itself chose." Roy's voice followed, deep and certain. "We are not enemies. Not anymore. And if you want this war to end with our blood, then strike. But know the moon will curse it." The pack stood trembling, torn between rage and awe. Brutus's face twisted, torn between father and alpha. Axon's growl shook the air, but even he couldn't deny the glow binding their heirs together. It was Celia who stepped forward first, her wolf form blazing. "I will not kill my brother's mate," she said fiercely. Then Ellie. "And I will not kill my cousin's heart." The words cracked the dam. Wolves on both sides lowered their claws, uncertain, unwilling to be the first to shatter what they'd just witnessed. The battle had no victor. It had something stranger, more dangerous, a pause. Brutus's growl finally cut through, low and savage. "This isn't finished, Emma." Axon snarled in kind. "Nor for you, Roy." But neither alpha gave the order to strike. And in the space between war and peace, Emma and Roy stood, hands bound in fire, hearts laid bare to the world. Epilogue. The battlefield emptied slowly, as though neither pack quite knew how to retreat. Wolves shifted back into human form, dragging the wounded, whispering in voices too quiet to carry. The river ran red in places, but no fresh blood spilled after Emma and Roy's bond flared like lightning between the armies. Brutus stood apart, massive shoulders heaving, his eyes locked on Emma with a mix of rage and something sharper, fear. He did not call her to heel, did not strike. For Brutus, silence was louder than any roar. On the far bank, Axon looked ready to tear the trees from their roots. His fury was a living thing, yet his warriors lingered behind him, their loyalty splintered by what they had seen. The moon's light on Roy's clasped hand with Emma had shaken them. Even Axon could feel it, no alpha's decree could match the pull of the bond. Celia approached first, her bare feet silent in the mud. She stopped before Roy and Emma, her face unreadable. Then she lowered her head, a bow not of submission but of choice. "If the moon bound you," she said softly, "I will not break it." Ellie crossed the river after her, defiance in her every step. "Neither will I." Emma's throat burned with unshed tears as she pulled Ellie close. Roy gripped Celia's arm, gratitude raw in his green eyes. The pack saw. The whisper spread. The war's fire had been doused not with victory, but with something neither side had words for. In the days that followed, there was no treaty, not yet. Axon raged. Brutus fumed. But neither ordered a fresh strike, not while the memory of that glow lingered in the minds of their wolves. Patrols thinned. Borders grew uneasy, but less bloodied. Emma and Roy met openly now, no longer shadows at the river. Some looked on with suspicion, some with wonder, some with hope they dared not name. One evening, beneath the full moon, Emma stood with Roy at the same riverbank where their secret had first begun. Their packs lingered on either side, watchful but silent. Roy took her hands, scars brushing scars. "We may not have ended their war," he murmured, "but we've started something stronger." Emma's smile trembled, fierce and tender. "Then let's finish what they never could." The moon bathed them in silver, and for the first time in generations, two hearts from rival packs beat in unison where blood had once flowed. Not enemies. Not anymore. Just Emma and Roy, hearts of the enemy, bound forever by the bond their fathers could never break. The end. Thanks for listening and don't forget to like and subscribe.